So I'm Facebook's Politics and Government Specialist for the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. What that means is that I work with politicians and government officials and diplomats and civil society leaders on how to use Facebook to connect to people. So the goal here is really to establish a closer connection between those who are governing and those who are governed, those who are making decisions and those who are affected by the decisions being made. A long time ago, at Facebook, we realized that people were turning to Facebook to talk about real issues that matter to them, politics and society and governance. But the people who were actually responsible for making those decisions were not necessarily yet in this space. And we saw it as absolutely critical to establish a closer connection between the leadership and the people who are affected by that leadership. Well, I actually started out as a French and Italian major, a language major, at Princeton University in the United States. I had always loved languages. I had studied French and Italian and German and Latin back in California when I was a younger student. And Princeton's French and Italian department were actually combined, which allowed me to do both in my studies. And it was actually my senior year of university at Princeton that I went to a career fair at the university and walked by the Google booth. I wasn't interested in Google at all. I had absolutely no real connection through to the tech industry per se. But a fellow, a Googler, as we say, at the booth handed me this bright green brochure and he said, "We have jobs for you." And at first I thought that there's no way that I would apply to a tech company. That's not at all what I set out to do. It wasn't even remotely on my mind. But I looked at this brochure and it was titled Global Communications and Public Policy. And I thought, well, hold on. Here I am, a French and Italian major who loves languages, who loves international culture, who loves connecting with people who are not from my own background or my own country. And right in front of me, I have this brochure that says Global Communications. Isn't that, in a way, exactly what I do? So I applied for the job at Google, received the interviews out in California, and a year later moved out to California to be on the international communications team there. It was actually about 11 months later that I received a call from Facebook. The woman who had trained me at Google in public relations brought me over as her young associate at the time to Facebook. And that was about almost 8 years ago now that I started my Facebook career, my Facebook journey. At Facebook, I was on the international communications team. So I was responsible for responding to every single email request we received from the press outside of the United States of America. It was a huge job. It was a fascinating job. I found myself, responding to emails in the French and the Italian that I had studied back at university. And then actually, created this division, which is the Politics and Government division, and moved out to London to do this. So I'm now based in London and covering the Europe, Middle East, and Africa region, which has taken me by now to about 41 countries in my region, which of course has more than 140 countries in the region as a total. Yeah, foreign languages are absolutely critical to the work that I'm doing. My job is to represent Facebook across my entire region, to serve as a public spokesperson for Facebook, to train and work with politicians and government representatives and civil society at the senior-most level. So if I could speak every language in my region, I would. It's that important, I think, to connect with people in the language and in the style that's comfortable for them. In my experience, French has been extremely useful, given that so many of the Francophone countries are in my region. I use French all the time, for example, when I'm in Africa, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and then of course in the European Union as well. But the Italian has been useful in many ways even outside of Italy, because when I'm in Spain, it's the Italian that helps me to understand what my Spanish constituents are saying. So what will often happen during the meeting is, the Spanish will use their own language, which I will understand. I can't respond in the Spanish, but at least we can meet each other halfway. And often, actually, I will use Italian in those meetings because they will understand the Italian better than they'll understand the English. So for me personally, to have been a language major is important culturally, linguistically, but also just frees up the opportunities that I have to represent Facebook well. As a manager, growing a team as well, when I'm reviewing resumes, so many people want to work for Facebook. It's an incredible company to work for. It's highly competitive to get a job at Facebook. And because I do international work and I have an international team and have so many countries that I need to cover, an applicant who actually has more languages in their portfolio, even if those languages are not widely spoken in the world, that's one more country that I know we can cover without friction, that I know we can cover without confusion, and that I know we can add to the overall expertise of our team. Receiving resumes from all over the world. It's highly competitive to get a job at Facebook. It's such an exciting place to be. So many people apply. And so when I was hiring, for example, a manager to cover Southern Europe, the fact that the woman who ended up being successful in that role spoke not only English and her native language, which is French, but also spoke Italian and was picking up Spanish was hugely useful for me, because I can send her out to these countries and know that she can handle them very, very well, that she can email our constituents back and forth and have more of a close relationship with them. I've always thought of languages in international business as opening up the world. The difference that you have when you can connect to somebody in their language versus when you're using a translator is huge. And especially when you're doing work as a spokesperson. I can't speak every language in my region, of course, but on a recent trip to Moldova, I was on National Evening News. I had the translation of the Moldovan, which is a language, of course, I don't speak, in my ear. And as the interviewer was asking me questions, the sound was not working, and I couldn't understand anything he was saying on live national broadcast in a very formal setting, and in a setting that would have been nice to have handled well. And instead, at the end of that question, I had to say, I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear the translation wasn't quite working yet. Of course, everything worked out. They got the sound fixed and all of that. But, had that taken place in a country where I could have maneuvered between languages, or at least picked up the essence of what was going on, we could have fixed the issue. Foreign languages are power. And I think for anybody who's considering what they're studying in today's world, we are a more global citizenry today. It is easier to communicate with people. We have Google Translate. We have all kinds of ways that you can figure things out. But if you actually understand what's being spoken in a room, if you actually can get the nuance at a conference venue, in the hallways of the European Union, you're going to find yourself more confident. You're going to find yourself more aware of what's going on, and I think more successful long term.